Successful people seek counsel, failures listen to opinion.
Published over 150 books, being asked to speak on some of the biggest stages. How'd you get there?
I said, that's a great goal. I've never read a book. So I sat down and made it a mission.
Wait. You never read a book?
No. I sent 8 of them out every week to 8 rejections the next week. I was turned down 268 times in a row for my first book.
On today's episode, I have a very, very special guest I'm honored to have in the studio. And I want to tell you guys, the first time I met this man was not too long ago, just a few months ago. We were both at an event in Modesto, California. And the first thing I noticed about him, I knew he was one of the main speakers, was the joy that he brought. Just the welcomeness, the way that you even made me feel when I met you. I was like, man, this is a man that walks with joy. This is a man that I want to be around. And then I watched him speak and I'm like, oh yeah, he's got to be probably the best speaker here. The way you got into the crowd, the way that you fired people up, I mean, giving away books, all the stuff that you did. And it's kind of crazy because I get talking to you, we exchange numbers, and I find out that like we live in the same area in San Diego. And guys, this is not an easy guy to get onto a podcast. We were talking before that he's like, yeah, maybe I've done 4 in-person podcasts this year because my schedule is so packed. He values family. He values his core values of putting what's first. Welcome to the show, Reid. Boom.
Champion. So first of all, it's a pleasure to see you again. And it is interesting how birds of a feather flock together. You know, you can sit there and go, what's the odds of us meeting in a different place, in a different state? 100%. Because destiny sometimes brings people together. You just don't know how.
Come on.
That's it.
And you got some cool stuff going on. Credibility is always cool. And we were talking before this. You've been published in over 150 books.
That's crazy, isn't it?
How is that even humanly possible?
Well, here's the best part. I'm dyslexic. I can't spell, I can't read, I can't write. If you play me Words with Friends, you'll win every single time. So the secret is you work your strengths and you hire your weaknesses. So I'm a good orator, I'm a good storyteller, and I have amazing ghostwriters and editors who take my words and then craft them in a way people would want to read it. So I'll sit down with my ghostwriter and say, okay, a boy wants a bike. He gets off his backside, he takes action, takes his dad's lawnmower, mows the neighbor's yard, makes money, buys a bike. And it comes back to me. It was a glorious Sunday afternoon when a young bright-eyed lad caught the entrepreneurial spirit as he went outside, and they crafted in a way people would want to read it.
Wow.
So I work my strengths, I align with my weaknesses, and together, amazing things have happened.
Man, that's so powerful. You know, it's amazing when you see someone operating in their highest and best use, understanding this is what I do well,
right,
and then surrounding yourself with everyone else that complements the weaknesses.
Yeah, a lot of people run away from their downsides. It's funny. One of my favorite interviews I ever did was a guy named Steve Wozniak, who started Apple Computers with Steve Jobs. And I asked him, I said, how is it you guys created so much abundance in your life? And he said, we embraced our lack. So what do you mean? He goes, we embraced what we didn't have. We didn't run from it. We illuminated it. And I said, give me an example. And he said, when little microchip processors came out, they were so expensive, we could only afford one. Jobs sold his car. I sold my calculator. We pooled our money. We bought one of these magical devices. But Hewlett-Packard, IBM, they'd make machines that go from point A to B with 20 chips. They had all the money of God. He said, so I'd pull away 5 and I'd go from A to B with 15. I'd pull away 5, get to work with 10. Eventually, I found a way to go from A to B using our one chip. He goes, we weren't trying to be innovative or cool or aerodynamic. We could afford one chip. But by embracing that as an opportunity, we found the shortest, cleanest path. And by doing that, we changed the way people do personal computing for the rest of the world, for the rest of their life. He goes, where could you be in your own life and business if you stop looking at something as your greatest challenge and obstacle, but it could just be your greatest blessing, opportunity in disguise.
Come on. And now today, Apple, #1 personal computer company in the world.
Yeah, coming up on $1 trillion. I mean, just absolutely.
Cell phone, took over the cell phone market, took over the personal music device market.
Well, let's talk about that. It's kind of interesting. I'm going back and forth with these guys from IKEA or Nokia. I'm saying, how is it the world that Nokia isn't the world's biggest phone company, considering they're the main thing? But they actually transitioned when the other companies started blowing up to more of the foundational things of the phone thing. So they're actually a larger company than you would expect, because what they did is they adapted and adjusted to it.
Wow.
But the guy who invented the cell phone, I saw him on 60 Minutes. His name's Marty Cooper. And 2 days later, I'm in his office. And I go, Marty, I got to know. what is stickability? Because I was writing a book called Stickability. What does that mean to you? And he said, stickability has to be parallel with another word called flexibility. He says, if you're not willing to adapt and adjust, you get stuck. And he told a story about a spider monkey. He said, in the rainforest, it's so quick and nimble, you can't catch it or harpoon it. Spirit, it's too wiry. One hunter figured it out. He took a heavy log, drilled a tiny hole, dropped a peanut inside, left it at the base of the jungle. The monkey would smell the nut, come down from the treetop, reach his hand in, grab a hold of it, but then his fist becomes so big he can't pull it out and become anchored to the log. All he's got to do is let go, but he holds on with dear life, thinking it's nutrition, it's saving him. The hunter comes by an hour later, captures this elusive spider monkey. And the moral is, are we holding on to our own nut in life right now? But it could be in the form of a job or fear or guilt or a car or the past or remorse. And what we're holding on with dear life, thinking it's saving us, just like the monkey, could be leading to our own demise.
Wow.
Sometimes we have to have the courage and the fortitude to let go and adapt and adjust so we can live to fight another day.
That is powerful and so true. All right, so let's backtrack a little bit here, Greg, before we go deep into some stuff. First of all, I always love to ask this. What do you, Greg Reid, value most in life?
Family.
Why?
Well, it's the true definition of legacy. I don't believe in legacy because the fact of the matter is you see these pyramids out in the desert and you see all the ancient relatives living around it still to this day, yet no one can explain how they did it. I mean, at the end of the day, legacy is written by the winners, right? And so what is true legacy? But the one thing we can do is leave our mark on our family and our kids and the next generation so that we could pass the baton so they can carry it on to the next generations. That's about the best we can do. And so I believe in the firm philosophy of living by example. Like my kid, I have no desire to leave him millions of dollars. I keep telling him, I go, good luck to you. I plan on spending everything I got before I'm gone, but I'll teach you how I did it so you could do it too. And so that is the whole concept I have.
That's powerful. And you have a wife and children?
I have one son. I have ex-wives, but my last former ex-wife, her name's Alan. I got the greatest ex-wife in the world. I know it sounds weird, but she's amazing. She runs my Secret Knock women's events.
Wow.
Her and her boyfriend are absolutely phenomenal. We still have dinners for Thanksgiving and stuff together. We're all like one big happy unit.
Yeah. And what's your boy's name?
Colt. Oh, gosh. Colt's a superstar. So this guy's 11 years old. He's just doing his own podcast now. And what's really interesting about this guy is that you learn something about someone all the time. And I was doing an interview, I don't know, maybe a year ago, and they changed Colt in my life. Just like an interview like this. And they said, do you give your kid money to do things he doesn't like to do around the house for allowance, like make the bed or pull weeds? I go, absolutely. I go, I'm going to teach my kid the power and respect of money. She goes, stop. She goes, too bad. I was expecting more. You're ruining your child forever.
Whoa.
I said, well, I'm a student's mindset. Teach me. And she goes, think about it. You're training your child from the earliest of memory. The only way to make money is to do something he hates. Boom. Change everything. So I sat my kid down and says, Colt, listen, I got millions of followers on Instagram, TikTok. You make those cool videos and Instagram memes. From now on, you're my guy. I'm going to pay your allowance to do what you excel at. And how about you just make the bed once in a while for living in this estate and driving these nice cars? And it changed the paradigm. So now when he wants a new pair of Jordans, he comes up and says, hey, Pop, how many TikToks you need?
Wow. And he enjoys doing that.
And
he's passionate about that.
Because he's working his strengths.
And you launch a podcast.
Well, no,
he's in the process?
He gets interviewed on podcasts. You understand, he's a superstar. At age 7, he had the #1 album on Amazon as the #1 hip hop spoken word. Wow. So at night before he goes to bed, he has a mantra, and then a buddy of mine put hip hop music to it and went on and #1 hit. And so every night before he goes to bed, he goes, my name's Colt. I'm happy, I'm powerful, I'm brave, I'm wise, I'm worthy, I'm successful. I help people. My name's Colt.
Wow, come on. That's so cool. I think we all can learn from that. You know, I don't have kids yet, but just looking forward to that day, getting a mentor, getting to pour into them. And it's cool to see someone that has accomplished what you've accomplished, but still say like, hey, family's always most important.
Oh, priority for me. Now, we also got to remember what we say to these kids always comes back. So we got to be careful.
What do you mean?
Okay, I'll give you an example. Right after COVID was done, we decided to have our first party. And it says, hey, Colt, contribution, go upstairs, make your bed, clean things up. We got a whole bunch of people coming over. And maybe 15, 20 minutes later, his best friend comes down with a handful of money and says, Dad, can you put that in my bank? I said, where'd you get that from? He goes, from your son, Colt. I go, what did he pay you money for? He goes, he paid me to make his bed, to clean his thing.
Delegation.
So I said, Cole, get down here. And he comes down. I go, why would you do that? And he says, Dad, you taught me work my strengths, hire my weaknesses. I had other stuff.
Wow, man, entrepreneur in the making. That's cool. So Greg, tell us a little bit more about yourself, backstory, how you got where you're at. You weren't always a speaker, right?
Well, I think I have always been a salesperson.
Okay.
So when I was a kid, 17 years old, my parents wanted me to go to college. And I said, absolutely not. I wanted to get into sales and marketing. And they kicked me out of the house. And I remember the final thing, literally, my dad, as he's closing the door, he goes, Greg, remember, you're never going to make a living talking to people. And he closed the door. And I remember the first time I made 6 figures as a sales rep, and I sent him a W-2 and said, hey, Dad, remember when you said I'd never make money? And now it's a running joke considering that's what I do for a living.
Wow, that's powerful. Okay, so growing up, you're like, hey, I want to get into sales. I want to get into marketing. You went into sales jobs, but there's this huge gap here. How'd you go from this young man in sales to being published over 150 books, being asked to speak on some of the biggest stages? How'd you get there?
Well, it was a fun journey. So from age 20 to 40, I only had one job. I was in sales and marketing.
Okay.
And I started my own company. I grew it and I sold it for 7-figure, cool little deal. And then people said, how in the world did you do that when you can't, really read very well and all this different stuff?
Yeah.
And so they asked me to speak at UCSD, and I did. And I explained how I grew this company. And afterwards, a kid said, hey, you should write a book. And I said, that's a great goal. I've never read a book. So I sat down and made it a mission.
Wait. You never read a book?
No.
And now you go on the mission to write a book.
Correct.
Wow.
So at age 40 is when I started. And I sat there and said, all right, well, how does this process work? So when you write a book, you do a query letter. It says who you are, what's your message, why are you an expert, who's going to read your book. I sent 8 of them out every week to 8 rejections the next week. I was turned down 268 times in a row for my first book. The 269th publisher said, I'll do your book, just change the title, beginning, middle, end. Trust me, it was horrible. I'm dyslexic. It was like boy, goat, dog, boat. It made no sense. So I didn't take it personally, right? So I got a ghostwriter. They recrafted it, and it went on to inspire literally millions of people. In fact, one quote from that book was shared supposedly 37 million times. It says, a dream written down with a date becomes a goal broken into steps becomes a plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. It's on bumper stickers, T-shirts, coffee mugs.
I've heard that.
Famous quote that was turned down 268 times in a row.
Wow. And there's so much lesson in that. For one, you took your strength and even you didn't let the weakness you had hold you back from doing this. You had resiliency facing rejection over and over and over again. And now the impact that your books have made all around the world. You know what I think is cool, and I don't know if you've ever thought of this, Greg. I live my life by a philosophy of who suffers if I don't show up today. And it's interesting because when I think about that and I look at someone like you sitting in that chair and the things you've done in your life and the things you will do, I sometimes think like, man, what if Greg decided not to do that? Who would have suffered because he didn't show up?
Yeah, and it's very interesting because now these books have been shared by so many different people, but now I'm writing my last book, as you know. I think I've said everything I need to say, and I'm going into more mainstream media. And I'll tell you the reason why. I did a movie, quite a few years ago. It's called Wishman. At Secret Knock, our event that we do, a guy named Frank Shankowitz, the founder of a nonprofit called Make-A-Wish Foundation that grants wishes to terminally ill kids. And at the end of the interview, I said, Frank, I got to know, what was your wish? And he looked at me like I had 2 heads. He goes, what do you mean? I says, well, you're the founder of Make-A-Wish. What did you wish for? And he says, no one asked me. I says, well, I'll be the guy to grant your wish. Anything you want, no matter what, I'll give it to you. And he says, I just want my story to be told so my grandkids will know I did something. So he signed over his life rights, and I said, Frank, I'll make this into a major film. Just know I've never made a feature film. And it took 6 years of trials and tribulations, but when it came out in 2019, we were on the final ballot for the Oscars. We're trending worldwide. We're on Netflix for a year and a half, and now we're just streaming everywhere. All based on this story that everyone can be a hero. You do not need to be a celebrity or a millionaire to give a pair of socks to a homeless person. Everyone can stop a bully from fighting. Everyone can do something to leave an indelible mark, to have a ripple effect to impact the lives of others.
Wow. So you're about to write, you just came out with a book, and this is the second to last.
That's right. It's called The Secret of Happiness. Now, I got to tell you a story behind this story. I've got a mentor. His name is David Corbin. And he taught me a lesson about illuminate. He says, you don't want to run away from situations. You want to put a spotlight on all your negativity because it gets rid of it right away. And I remember I had a book many years ago, and it was called Stickability, the one we were talking about earlier. And on Amazon, all I had was these rave reviews. And then one person gave me a 1-star review, and it says, it sucks. And I went to him. I said, what do I do? I'm so embarrassed. I got this negative review. And he says, how could you illuminate it? So I sent an email to 37,000 people on my email list and said, hey, everyone, my new book seems to be a great success. Everyone loves it. Hey, by the way, one guy says it sucks, 1 star. Click on it. What do you think? And what happened? It became a giant bestseller instantaneously.
Wow. So you turned that 1-star review into a bestseller.
Yes. And that's the same thing just did just this second. So yesterday, this book comes out. It's called Secret of Happiness. Pretty cool. But the publishers made a mistake and they wrote my name wrong on the back. Reid. So the first thing I did is same thing. I got on the internet and I started doing these videos and I said, hey, the Secret of Happiness is out. I'm happy. Even the guy in the back named Gred is happy. You can be happy even if your name's Gred. And sure enough, you go look it up right now. We're just hit bestseller.
Wow. And guys, I get one of the unique copies because there will never be more of these, of the Reid edition. Going to get it signed by him. So maybe in 40 years, I'll sell for $500,000.
I'm gonna sign it Gred, by the way. That's gonna be my new thing. But isn't that funny? Because so many people be embarrassed and run from it. But as soon as you put a spotlight on it, is it embarrassing anymore? No, It's gone. It's the same thing if you're behind on taxes or you have tough conversations you need to have. To me, it's this philosophy. Do the hardest thing first, and then the rest is easy.
Wow. Yeah, and on the other side of the thing we're afraid of is often everything we want. It's never as bad as we thought it would be.
Never.
It's almost like jumping out of an airplane. Like you never want to make the jump, but once you do, you're like, that was actually not that bad.
It's pretty violent though at first, you got to admit. So most people don't. You have that dream where you're floating and stuff, but then when you jump out of an airplane, you got a 200-mile-an-hour winds in your face. It's pretty violent. It is pretty violent. When you pull the cord, it's pretty easy, but boy, that's pretty violent at first. I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't want to do it. It's so funny. I had an adventure club, and I take people climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, running with bulls and stuff. And skydiving, my mom, she was an older lady, she wanted to go. And I remember we were in the plane getting ready to go up and everyone's jumping out. And I was talking myself out of every reason I'm not going to do this thing. And I'm telling you, I was as close as you could be to bailing out. And I was just ready to make my excuse. And I look over and here's my mom. Whee! And she jumps out of the plane. Hey, I can't get out of this now.
Your mom just went.
I'm next. Let's go.
I'm supposed to go Sunday. I've never jumped, actually.
It's amazing, but it's violent. At first, as long as you expect that, it's not so bad. But
yeah, Jeremy's going to hear this now. He's coming in today to record, too, my good buddy. He's a business partner. And he's like, hey, man, you want to go skydiving at 3 p.m. on Sunday? I'm like, sure.
Yeah, once you conquer that, it's pretty much like checks the boxes. It's about as afraid as I think a person can be.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest feeling because it goes against all your instincts and things of this nature. But it's absolutely phenomenal. So you're going to have a good time.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it's like running with the bulls. Well, actually, you run from the bulls. That's another one because, man, when you're in that pit and they lock you in and that cannon goes off, it's just you, beast, and all those other people.
The one that they do in Mexico?
No, Pamplona, Spain.
Oh, that's the Spain one. And they do every year, and they have all those people running.
That's right.
Yeah, that would be...
It's the only sporting activity known to man that's 100% somebody's leaving in an ambulance.
Wow. I just got to be faster than the guy behind me.
What I do is I always seek counsel and not advice. And so what I did is I found the guy who wrote the definitive book on running with the bulls in Spain. I called him up and said, what do I do? Where do I stand? He goes, that's easy. Around the second curve, there's a straight away. Go right in the middle of that straightaway. He goes, the bulls are going to go to one side. The people are going to, stampede themselves here. You'll be in the middle. You can take a selfie. So as soon as the cannons went off, I went and stood right there and had the best time of my life.
Wow.
Seek counsel, not opinion. Here's from 3 Feet from Gold, one of my best-selling books. Successful people seek counsel. Failures listen to opinion. The difference is opinions based on ignorance, lack of knowledge, or inexperience, like all your family friends who've never done what you want. Counsel's based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. People have paved the way. So if I go to a family friend and say, I'm going to write a best-selling book, they're going to try to talk me out of it to protect me because I'm dyslexic and they've never written a best-selling book. But if I go to Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, he's going to say, here's what you need to know based on wisdom, mentorship, and counsel. If we would spend our activity only seeking counsel and ignoring opinion, that's the day your lives would change.
That's some of the best advice we've ever been given. Now, in the process, right? So somebody wants to do something. They know they need to seek wise counsel to do it with excellence, to learn, to avoid pitfalls. What steps do you recommend they take to find that counsel?
People have already accomplished, I'm going to say again, surround yourself with people who have already accomplished what you want to do today. I'm going to add the today caveat because, again, if being truthful, if I went to Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote a book 30 years ago and sold 1 billion copies, doesn't mean he could do it again today, right? So I'd say, who's getting the results we want for ourselves today?
Okay.
And I'd ask that person for guidance. So, for example, if I was going to write a best-selling book today, I'd go to Barnes & Noble, I'd go to the bestseller section, see who's the hot person, number one, and ask that person exactly the system. Same thing when I wanted to make that movie. I said, who's won Oscars, Golden Globes, Emmys? And I went and sat down with them. Look, if starving artists hang out with other starving artists, it's pooled starvation. If I want to be an artist and I know nothing about it, I go outside a gallery and I just sit there. And whoever's art was being pulled off the walls, I'd go find that person and say, hey, how do you do it?
Yeah, that's so good. Success leaves clues. And, you know, not everyone that's super successful makes themselves accessible. But what I found is...
Oh, disagree.
Really?
I couldn't disagree.
Go down it.
That's that's a hard thing. And I appreciate that, but I just want to give you 100% opposite.
No, it's good.
The most successful people are actually the most available people.
Why?
If you're brand new at something, you're happy-go-lucky, you're fresh, you're cool. You have nothing to prove. If you're at the top, you're happy-go-lucky, you got nothing to prove, nothing else out there. And you're in the middle, you're a pain in the neck. You're filled with ego, edging God out, finding your own voice. It is much, much easier to get to the founder of Remax Real Estate, multi-trillion-dollar company, than your local Remax president down the office, because he's got all those agents in there and receptionists, and he's driving his little car and thinks he's cool. It's easier just to jump to the front of the line because they've got the free time. And the way that you get access to these people is specificity. And I know I don't say it right because I'm dyslexic, but being specific. This is my secret sauce. It is so simple, it's going to blow your mind. If I want to get to the guy who starts NASCAR, I'm going to reach out and say, Mike, I'm asking for 12.5 minutes of your time. That is all, I promise. I'll cover all my own costs and expense to come to you. From the moment I open the door till the time I leave will be 12.5 minutes, and I will start a stopwatch. I'm going to ask you one simple question, XYZ. The chance of him coming from his office down to the break room to do that is so high. But most people screw it up. They say, I want to take you to lunch. I want to take you to dinner. How can I be of service? Let me pick your brain. No one wants that. But as soon as you have that specificity, it opens the door. When I'm speaking on stage and I get off and there's a long line of people wanting to have conversation, and they say, how can I be of contribution? How can I be of service? Beautiful. I don't got 30 minutes for a resume check. Compare to that to someone comes up, hey, saw your Instagram. I saw you have all those followers. I make really cool videos. Let me send you one. If you like it, you'll use me. 8 seconds, I know who you are, what you do. You got my cell phone, we're in contact. That's the only difference. So if you go and try to have lunch with somebody, yes, it's difficult. I agree with you. If you do it the way I just said, doors start open.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's wisdom. And it's interesting because if there's a will, there's a way. And you actually said that the very successful people, the most successful, actually have the most time because they are most successful. And then it was how you approach them with that specificity. So yeah, I stand corrected. I mean, that's pretty good.
Specificity is the right way to say it?
Specificity.
I said specificity. I'm telling you, I am bright. Look, it's so funny. I just turned 60, and so my little flaws and stuff, I'm so good with it anymore. It's so funny. I was just flying back on an airplane on going to New York, and I bit into something, and one of my caps fell off of my teeth, and they go, oh, are you going to do interviews? Like, I don't care. I look like a pumpkin, until I get it done. It's so funny. I don't run away from my challenges anymore. Another good thing that's kind of interesting, my son Colt, he's an actor and a model. He just got his first gig. So I took him out to New York, and he's got an agency out there and all this good stuff. But I bought a billboard, rented it out for 15 seconds, and I paid many thousands of dollars for this billboard. And I thought it was so cool. I was going to surprise him with it, and it was cool, and he did. And he goes, how much did you pay for that? And I go, yeah, well, the Barbie movie was there, and we bumped them, and for 15 seconds, I paid thousands. I gave him all this story because that's what the story I was told. He goes, no, it's $40. I go, no, you don't understand. What? Maybe you're friends, but what I did is, he goes, no, Dad, it's $40. And he pulled out this app, and there's an app that basically what you do is you go to Times Square, you upload your video, and you put it up there and you pick the time that you want it to go, and it's only $40. So someone charged me all this extra money.
Oh my God.
So I was so proud walking around like a peacock and going, yeah, you dumbass.
That's crazy. All right, so I want to ask you, inside of The Secret of Happiness, this is a book that just came out. People should check it out. What can we expect to walk away from inside of that book?
Well, you'll make your own discoveries, which is beautiful. It's a parable. So it's a story about a young woman who goes through a divorce. She wins a fancy apartment in a high rise in that situation. And what happens, she's not sure how she can afford to keep the rent going. And they assign a doorman named JB. And sure enough, they build up this relationship, and JB keeps saying, hey, you might want to read this book. You might want to put this, and puts Post-it notes in her things. And slowly her life starts evolving by all these messages. And near the end of it, it's really cool. She sits there and says, oh my gosh, I was late on the rent, but I just got this job. So can you go ahead and make sure that it gets done? And she looks at the check, and it's made out to like Jacob or whatever foundation. And JB says, yeah, I'll cash that next week. Don't worry about it. She goes, what do you mean? He goes, I'm JB, I'm the guy on the check. And he goes, but you're the doorman. He says, no, you understand. He goes, what I do is I always do this as a disguise for the first couple months when I open a new building, so I can hear from the tenants exactly what needs to be fixed and repaired, so I can make sure they have the best experience. Wow. And he goes, since you built up such this relationship and did so good, like Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory, when he goes to the next building, he gives her this building where she moves to the penthouse and runs it on, ongoing. But the messages that JB teaches her is what this book is all about. And they're phenomenal.
So I want to go back to relationships a little bit, because before the podcast, I asked you, Greg, is there anything on your heart that you want to talk about? And for you, it was all about relationships. It's all about who you know. I mean, you have a secret knock. I want to talk about that, what you've built. I mean, even just a moment ago, you talked about, and it's cool listening to you. I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, this guy just has a different way of seeing it. Like, there's no one in this world that's off limits to him, because he knows how to build that relationship with them, how to get their time, how to invest in them, how to be precise with the way that he approaches them. And, you're even telling me out there, it's just, I surround myself with cool people.
That's it.
And we get to do cool things.
Man, our whole idea of our events is be cool. That's our only rule that we have. Be cool. And what that means is there's no name tags. There's no one babysat. If I see someone giving out someone a business card, I'll smack it out of their hands. It's not what it's about. It's about building a relationship with people. And we say, look, if water runs out on the table, go get some water and bring it back to everyone else. Everyone else wants water. Be cool. Just be normal. And we've built this relationship with many people. So when you come to our gatherings, you feel you're one of them. But more importantly, you're one connection away to changing your life. Mm-hmm. So our whole concept is, look, if you're in the textile business, we don't bring coaches and teachers and mentors and all that garbage. We just bring in the actual person. So over at the taco bar right now is Brian Smith, founder of UGG Boots, a multi-billion-dollar brand. Go talk to that guy. If you got an idea for a board game, there's Rob Angel, who invented Pictionary. If you got an invention, here's the guy, Ron Klein, who created that magnetic strip on the back of a credit card that changed all of banking. We just surround ourselves with the people who've done what everyone else is talking about. And by having direct connections with them, your life catapults accordingly by surrounding yourself with people who are doing.
Yeah, that's so good. And how did you begin to surround yourself with people like that began to do those things, the ones that actually had done it?
I just expect everyone to say yes. Door number one. That's just my attitude. Look, no, just like everyone watching this and you've never heard of me before, no one's ever heard of me when I'm reaching out to them. Nobody.
Yeah.
I just do it with the same exact attitude that I'm doing right now. I mean, would you talk to me? There you go. That's it. I approach everyone with that be cool mentality. And also that never someone is better or stronger or richer or more powerful than me. I don't believe in that stuff.
Yeah. You don't let it intimidate you.
I just don't. I don't buy into that. So to me, people are people. So it's called TTE. Talk to everyone. Everyone you meet's going to know something you don't know. Everyone. A homeless guy, the guy working the elevator, the billionaire, the limo driver. Everyone's going to know something you don't know. TTE. Talk to everybody, and that's the mentality.
Yeah, that's so good. And Secret Knock's been around 17 years.
Yeah, 17 years. Speaking of that, Secret of Happiness, let's plug this a little bit. I'll tell you one of the stories that came from this book about TTE. One of the premises of this book is based on me just talking to an average person. So what happened is I believed that the secret of happiness was a subtractive equation and not an additional equation. Let me explain. every time we add a car, a house, a boat, relationship, thinking that will give us happiness, it never does. But when we subtract shame, guilt, remorse, toxicity, then all of a sudden we have happiness. So to me, it was clear that the whole secret of happiness was, the answer is it's a subtractive equation and not an addition one. The end. And then I was having dinner with a young lady from Mexico, and she goes, "That's a shame you think that way." I said, "Why?" She goes, "You're seeing things from a first world perspective. You guys have so much abundance, you can get rid of stuff and still be happy." I said, "Teach me." And she goes, "Well, in my village where I grew up," she goes, "everyone's been trying to get to America for generations. No one could ever get it. I was the first person to ever get a passport to come up here to actually go to school." She goes, "But when I got that visa, you would have thought I won a gold medal in the Olympics. Everyone celebrated." He goes, "But when I actually became a citizen and I bought a car, a nice one, on my own credit, that's where you thought I literally landed on the moon." He goes, "Everyone celebrated me like I was the biggest success story they've ever seen. But more importantly, it gave hope to an entire village that never had it before." And goes, "So for us, adding those simple little things gave joy and fulfillment and hope and possibility to people that could never even dream of it before."
So what did you learn from that?
There's two sides to every single thing. It's how you look at it. It's one of those situations where, you know, if you walk into a bank and it gets robbed and there's 5 different people seeing it, they all have a different perception of it.
Right.
Well, it's the same thing as happiness. Happiness basically is the perception and the definition in which we choose to give to it at any chosen time. But the biggest thing I've realized that steals happiness is that we allow people to dump on us and we don't say stop. And I'm gonna give an example. If I walked into your house and I had a trash bag full of dirty diapers and rotten cheese and I started tearing it open, putting it in the floor, chances are you're going to come out and say, "Stop, get out of here."
Of course.
But for some reason, we'll let people open our brain, dump all their crap, and we just sit and take it. And we also got to say, "Stop. I appreciate what you're going through. I wish you well," and send them on their way to maybe people that could be more effective, but I got to protect myself so I'm not putting all that garbage.
Yeah, that's good. It's interesting because who we let influence us has such an impact on us, right? The input creates the thoughts that we have. The thoughts create the beliefs that we have. The beliefs create the habits that we have. The habits create the actions create the result. So anytime I go through difficult things in my life, I always look at, well, where's my input?
Well, I wrote the book on it. So Bob Proctor and I wrote the book called Think and Grow Rich, Thoughts Are Things. And so, yeah, we did a very deep dive on that one. And our thoughts, you know, become our reality. But you said the best part about it is it's thoughts backed by action becomes our truth. If thoughts were things, I'd be a slice of pizza right now. I'm hungry. But my thoughts become reality when we're done with this interview and I drive over to Felipe's and get a piece of pizza. My thoughts become reality by the actions we took. How many times have we had $1 million idea in the shower? By the time we brush our teeth, it's down the drain to see it on a billboard 10 years later saying, "There's my idea." The only difference between those two people is one person acted.
Wow. Teach me, Greg, and teach the audience.
Oh, Jedi Knight.
I feel there's so much to learn from you. I have so much wisdom. And to be honest, it's actually a challenging interview for me because I'm like, man, where do I want to take Greg?
Wait, I'm giving you gold right here.
No, you're gold. But for me, it's like there's so many things I want to pull out of you that I'm almost excited about. But I think that there's a large part of the audience. There's 2 people. There is a person that they have the thoughts and they are taking the actions and they're in the pursuit of that and they're hitting difficulties along the way. Then there's another person that's sitting and listening to this interview right now that's always been the individual deep down that feels like they're on the sidelines watching guys like you and even myself in the game. Like, man, they think about it and they go do it and they're doing it. And I just sit here and I'm like, man, you know, I was telling you before the show, I just want people to be able to hear these conversations I get to have. And some of the best things in life are caught, not even taught. And if they could just catch even 10% of this, if they could catch 10% of the way that you see your life, the way that you live your life, then their life will be made so much better because of it. But yet so many people fail to do that. So many people fail to take the thought that they have in the shower, that's the $1 billion idea, and act on it. What wisdom do you have for them?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. There's an old bumper sticker that says, "What would you do if you couldn't fail?" I say throw that in the trash. The question is, what would you do the moment you stop worrying about what people think? It's interesting. In the book, Think and Grow Rich, which is the Bible of personal development, the biggest chapter is called The 6 Ghosts of Fear. And back in the old days, he talked about the fear of loss of love and the fear of old age. And I don't believe in those fears today. Things have changed. I believe the three biggest fears that we have right now is one is the fear of the unknown, the fear of pain, and the biggest one is the fear of judgment. That's the number one fear. And the funny thing is we spend so much time worrying about what people are thinking about us, but they're never thinking about us. They're dealing with their own life situations.
Yeah.
So people say, I can learn everything I need to know about you by the company you keep. And I say, no, I can learn everything I need to know about you by the circumstance which you're at, because we are where we chose to be. And we're the ones who put us in the circumstance. So therefore, if you sit there and say, I want a Lamborghini, but don't have a Lamborghini, it just means you weren't willing to do what was necessary to have a Lamborghini. So that's the bottom line. And the action in California, I mean, we live on the beach, right?
Right.
Local San Diego. Do you know what a duck dive is?
Yeah, on a board.
Correct. So to me, duck dive is the secret of success. The duck dive is the secret of success. Okay, in California, there's big waves that come out in the ocean. And you can tell a senior surfer from a new surfer by the duck dive. A new surfer sees a wave coming. They hold on the board. They freak out. It pushes them down, breaks the board and them in half, right?
Yeah.
A senior thing goes right into the belly of that wave and pops up the other side. They don't even get wet. The whole thing is they go towards their fear. Yeah. And what I realized that the most successful people, all they do is duck dive.
That's good. I've never heard that. They go towards the fear. They go towards the unknown. They don't care about what other people think. And they just keep pushing through the waves.
So in this conversation, I told you I got a chipped tooth and my name spelled wrong and people think my books suck. Yeah, go right into it.
Yeah, that's so good. You have another book, your last book. Are you allowed to talk about what it's going to be about?
Well, the topic is the name of the book. It's called Personal Development, and it's never been done. It's a whole genre. No one's ever done it. So I've taken the last 20 years of everything I've learned, all the different people, all these stories we're talking about, and condensing them into one book.
Wow.
And I'm making everything short. So for example, if you want to read the book As a Man Thinketh, and it's a 200-page book, and one paragraph go, as a man thinketh, what you think is what naturally comes to be. Our thoughts become realities and the actions in which we take. And then synthesize it down into a paragraph and go, boom, just save you 200 pages. Same thing as Think and Grow Rich, same as The Secret, same as all these different books. And what we're doing is making it super accessible to people so that you can get the tapas, the little tasty thing, so you can go do a deeper dive if you want.
Wow, that's good. And in today's world, people want that.
Correct.
People want the condensed Cliff Notes version.
Look at this book. I mean, people laughed at me because this is a 90-page book. But you know what? You could read it in a couple sittings on the toilet, you know? And that's, to me, the whole concept.
Yeah, that's so good. And I've actually learned some of these books. Like, Think and Grow Rich changed my life. So reading that book, I was 17 years old. And I think I've read it 13 times now. And I keep going back to it, and I love it. And now there's more condensed versions and things like what you worked on with Bob Proctor and different things that have come out. And I gravitate more to that now. Once I've read the entire book, I still go back. You know, there's things I go through in my life and I'm like, I need to go back to this chapter, right? This is going on. I need to learn from this. But the condensed version is what everyone wants. And I want to challenge you on something because you're doing more content. I just got this download. Everyone wants the 60-second or less reel or TikTok lesson. What if Greg Reid took all of those lessons and made a 60-second or less video explaining it?
Exactly. That's exactly what it's time for.
And because you're moving more into media, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you go on to my Instagram, that's what it is. They're all short, little, condensed little pieces because this is how people want the information. And it's about the content, not the deliverer. I mean, the whole thing is I'm so over this guru BS thing that's out there. It's a we generation. It should be, here, look, I'm a student. I'm one step ahead. Don't step in that hole. You'll protect your kneecap, right? That's it. And so I come from a student's mindset. That's probably the least famous guy in our space because I am not going to go out there and be the big band leader to teach this stuff. I'm just going to actually live it and put the information out and let people get it. I don't mind who gets the credit.
Yeah, that's so good. And you talked about, it sounds like your medium and your media is changing. You've been, an author for so long and speaker, and now you're kind of changing the way you do that. What's the plan for where you're going with all this with more media?
Good stuff. So I'm working on 2 TV shows, and I got 2 movies in the process right now.
Okay.
So we're going to be filming a full feature here in San Diego next year. Very excited about it.
Wow.
It's so excited about it. It's called Barrio to Beverly Hills. And the whole concept is a Hispanic gal from here in the barrio falls in love with a rich kid from Beverly Hills, and the dichotomy between those two families, like Romeo and Juliet, push each other apart. They come together on Christmas Eve at Balboa Park. The families reunite, Barrio to Beverly Hills.
Wow, come on. So you got 2 movies, 2 TV shows.
That I'm working on now.
Wow. And then obviously you've been up in your content game quite a bit.
Quite a bit. And again, this is just the stuff. We have 6 major events coming up next year, which is great. We got our last books publishing, which is pretty cool. We've got the shows, in production and things moving forward. Just a lot of great, good stuff. I mean, it's so wonderful. Things are in flow right now.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was just about to bring that up. You talked about life's in flow right now. What does that mean to you, and how do you get to it?
I'm going to have to reverse engineer that one later because it just hit me recently. I go, gosh, I don't feel that stress anymore. When you wake up and go, gotta hustle or I gotta grind or I gotta get a deal. I haven't had that for a while. I don't know when it ended, but it did. And I'm going, we got to figure out how to package that.
Yeah.
Because then you can start focusing on what's important. And now it's so funny. I'm focusing now on the micro of my business rather than the whole giant thing of we got to grow and build. Now I'm sitting there going, well, how do I get a system in place that when a client comes in, they feel loved right away? That's my mindset. How do I get a card into their hand with a little key inside with a handwritten notes welcoming them in? Hey, how do we get this? How do we get this? So to me, that's where my mindset's going.
That's so cool. Yeah, I can't wait to get into that flow state. I think I'm a little bit still on the macro.
Yeah, grinding. I mean, we do what we've got to do.
And that I don't know if you're a guy that very much goes the opposite of everything, but a lot of people say there's seasons, right, for everything, and maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but there's a season where you're building.
Well, there's seasons. I 100% agree to that.
Yeah, I'm always careful with Greg, so I'm gonna be like, there's seasons, and he's gonna.
No, well, even if I have a different perspective, it's just my perspective. Let me teach you something called the hand in the sand.
Okay.
This is gonna change your life.
Let's go.
Okay, I'm 35 years sober guy. I've been sober longer than you've been alive, and I checked myself when I was 24 into one of these rehab centers. And they kept telling me what to do. Put a bumper sticker in your car, do a chant, do all this different stuff. And I go, man, I just don't want to drink. And I was going to leave. And I packed up my stuff and I was walking out and a guy came out. I wish I knew his name because it changed my life. And he said, grab a handful of sand. And there was a volleyball court, so I grabbed a hand. It says, when people are giving you their input, it's not to mess you up. They're only giving you perspective from their point of view. So what you want to do is just say, thank you very much. Don't say yeah, but or argue it. Just say thank you because it's honoring their perspective. They're trying to help.
Yeah.
And if it works for you, you keep it in your palm. If not, you let it slip through your finger. So someone says, hey, put a bumper sticker on your car. I say, well, I drive a nice car. Thank you very much. Hey, get a men's group. Oh, that makes sense. Do this. Get a sponsor. That makes sense. Do this. That doesn't work for me. He says, as you close your hand, that becomes your program that works for you.
Yeah.
Don't tell other people what they should do. Work your own thing. And that's how I run my business. That's how I raise my kid. That's how I stay sober. That's how I do my projects.
Yeah, it's so good. Thank you for that lesson. That's powerful.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's slip through its fingers, but that's the idea.
I just realized
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
slip. No.
Yeah, go jump in a lake. I got it. No,
I was just practicing what you taught me, I was taking the thought, putting it into action.
I felt it. It's good.
Yeah. So, Secret Knock, can you expound a little bit more on it? There are people that listen to this that might want to get involved with what you've built, and tell us a little bit more about Secret Knock and what somebody can. You've already hit a little on it, but I know that people in my audience would be like, "Man, I want to check Greg out. I want to know where to find him. What is this Secret Knock thing? Is it something I should be a part of?"
So many years ago, what happened is I was interviewing a lot of amazing people. So in 1908, Napoleon Hill was given a letter from a guy named Carnegie to write Think and Grow Rich. It was basically an access letter of introduction. 100 years later to the date, the surviving grandkids and Napoleon Hill Foundation gave me the same type letter. So I have a Willy Wonka ticket to meet anyone alive. And so what happened is it started opening up doors of things, and I invited over 300 people to come with me on the journey when I wrote 3 Feet from Gold, and no one ever came. And so afterwards, it became a great success. They said, hey, how do I meet your friends? So I started an event in my living room. I said, I'll bring a couple in. We'll hang out, have dinner together. And they said, do I need a ticket? I go, no, just knock on the door, bump, 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 as a joke. And that became the Secret Knock. And then people left and told people. And now we're Forbes, Inc., Entrepreneur Success, top event in the world for business leaders. We're known as the greatest event you cannot go to. So you have to know someone, you have to be invited, or if not, you have to go to find our website, and that's hard to do, And then you have to fill out an application. Someone's got to talk to you. And the reason we do that is because it's that be cool mentality. We don't want someone with a wackerdoodle mentality coming up to the president of Mexico and, doing the old dumping, right?
Yeah.
So we're very particular who we align ourselves with.
And you guys don't promote it.
We've never run an ad. We don't do a thing. You can't go. And here's the funny thing. We sell out 6 months early every single time.
Wow.
So this is the time to go. For people watching, this is it. There's no backtrack. It's secretknock.co. We left the M off, and still people tend to find us.
Wow. And then if you know how to get to Greg, he told you how today. He told you, hey, I want 12 and a half minutes of your time. Yep. It'd be very specific.
Instagram, Greg S. Reid. Because it goes to me, no filter, no one sees it. It goes to my phone. But again, if you want to talk about the kids, what they ate for dinner and the weather, I ain't going to respond. But if it's, hey, what's a business book I could read? Who's a good contact for me? I respond 100%.
Yeah. And what are the top 3 resources you recommend for personal development that have benefited you in your life?
Live events, which is always good because you get to go right to the source and hear it right from the horse's mouth. Books and tapes is great, but at the end of the day, we're absorbing more from podcasts and we're things. The old days used to say readers are leaders, and I don't think so anymore. That's why we're writing 90-page books. I think now it's the absorbing of content are leaders. So how you get the content doesn't make a difference, but absorb that content, right? And then door number 3 is apply what your mentors teach you. This is the biggest one. I had a great mentor when I got into public speaking. His name's Les Brown. He's this motivational.
I love Les.
Amazing guy. He baptized my son. A great guy. And when I first met him, though, I was brand new. And I said, Mr. Brown, give me one nugget, just one thing I could do different in my speaking career to improve it. He said, that's easy. He gave it to me. I hunted him down a month later. I said, Mr. Brown, I met you a month ago. I asked for one nugget. You gave it to me. Here's my results. What should I do next, sir? His jaw was on the ground. Like, someone did what I said. What's the chance of him giving me that next nugget?
100%.
And now he calls me for nuggets, and we're friends and alliance partners and things. And here was his nugget. He said, when you're on stage, most people you can tell are a rookie because they take a microphone and they hold it right here and they talk. He goes, immediately what you're doing is you're blocking your connection with your audience. He goes, look at me. He goes, every picture, go look at Les Brown. I hold it at the very end of it. And I hold it out here so the microphone's here so I connect with the audience. You can still hear me, and I use this as a tool, but not as a blocking point. Wow. That was the first thing he did.
I'm taking notes. I'm taking mental notes right now.
Then he and I did an event together, and I remember I got a standing ovation. It was nice, and I walked off stage, and he goes, man, you just messed that up pretty good. I go, what do you mean? He goes, watch the master. And he went out on stage, and he did his, and he got a real standing ovation, and he stood there. And at the end of it, he did something a little different with his hands. And he walked off stage. I go, that was amazing. He goes, let me teach you what the difference was. He goes, when you got your standing ovation, here's what you did. Stop, go away. Oh, come on, thing. And you walked off stage. You didn't even give them a chance to honor you and to absorb the content that you just left. You just ignored it and dismissed it. He goes, when I did it, I stood there, and at the end of it, I took my hands like the Farmers Insurance logo, and I said, thank you. Thank you. And I turned my feet to every side of the audience, and I absorbed it. He goes, they're not applauding you for you. You're giving them a chance to absorb what they just learned, and you're part of that process of communication.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, I literally just went in my mind. I was like, oh, I've messed up a few events.
There's more. And then the last one, it was amazing, is someone came up and gave me some cookies, I remember, at an event. I'm on a diet. I can't take these. I go, thanks a lot. Anyway, I go give them to someone that could, enjoy it. And then someone pulled me aside, goes, do you know they just drove like 5 hours to get here, and they were up till 3 o'clock in the morning making you those cookies? Exactly. He goes, when people give you stuff, it's not for you. It's for them. I went back to that person and said, you know what? I go, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm on a diet, but I cannot keep my eyes off those cookies. I go, can I retract my earlier statement and have those? They look so delicious. I go, where'd you buy them from? Oh, I made them. Oh, you made these? And then built that bond. And their eyes lit up like the moon.
Wow.
Now I could walk away and naturally donate them to somebody else, but you want to honor that person who did that. Isn't that great?
That's powerful. Yeah. And honoring, I think sometimes we don't realize the effect that we have or the dishonor. It's just something we don't even think about. Like, no, I'm on a diet, this and that. But that person did that to honor you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Same as the applause, same as the thing. So back to my original point, you honor you grow. One of the 30 things by honoring your mentors, by actually applying and then reporting back of what you learned. And that's how I built my relationships. Every single one of these, celebrity people all become my friends because I honor them. I ask them for feedback, and then I go apply it and say, here's what I learned. What can I do next?
Yeah.
Students' mindset.
Yeah, it's so good. Greg, what's one thing I could do better from the time that you've met me?
I think you did outstanding today, except for directions on getting here. I went to the 3rd floor, which I would have known. I was about to leave, to be honest with you. So I guess that would be just a know to show up. Clarity, and communication, my friend.
Yes, sir. I received that. I will come back to you in a month, Greg. This is the SOP that I have built with my team, so this never happens again.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Just so you know, we're in a large building. It's multi-story. So I went upstairs because it said number 300, and they go, oh, I don't know who you're talking about. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was texting, where do I go? That's all it was when we were on the 2nd floor. Easy fix, but I didn't know.
Yeah, I walked up. Greg's outside, and Greg's about ready to leave. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Greg. And just one last thing, anything else you want to leave, us with today? Anything that's on your heart?
I do. I got a message, but first of all, this gentleman right here.
Yeah.
Great job producing behind the scenes, making us feel good
Tony.
and look good. We appreciate you, man. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll leave with this. People always ask, what's my favorite interview? It's like picking your favorite child, right? But my favorite one came from a poet and a philosopher and a wordsmith named Evander Holyfield. He's this old boxing legend, won more heavyweight championships than anyone. And I said, Evander, what makes you so special? And he says, I have a higher standard. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, in sports, I showed up early, I left late, I invented exercises, I had a higher standard, and I won more championships than anyone. He goes, where could you be in your own business if you raise your standard? I said, but didn't it hurt being in a fight? He says, yeah, it hurts, but when you're in a fight, you don't focus on the pain. You don't focus on the blows. As soon as you focus on the pain, you end up on your back knocked out. But that's what people do outside the ring. They focus on gas prices, war, economy, COVID, and then they wonder why they never become a champion. And he pulled me in tight. An Adonis of a man missing half an ear bitten off by Tyson. He says, you know what the funny thing is? He says, when you do win the championship, he says, everyone comes to their feet and they chant your name. They raise your hand in victory, and the guy puts a big shiny belt around your waist. He says at that moment and at that second, you don't feel even one of the punches you took along the journey. But the guy in the losing locker room will have every bruise, every excuse for the rest of their life, wishing they had a higher standard.
Come on, guys. Let's hold ourselves to that higher standard, to that champion's mentality. Yeah, I just really feel like so many of us can be a champion. Every single one of us can be a champion. Yet so few of us will actually step in and pay that price and, go with it. I live my life by a philosophy, Greg, that we do get to choose our heart. We're going to pay a price of discipline now. We're going to pay a price of regret later. And it's interesting because you talked about those 3 things. I don't think one person I don't think that champion could be a champion without a corner man. I don't think that champion can be a champion without a team, without a mentor, without a coach, because at some point it gets to you.
Yeah.
And you got to have that person that talks you out of it. Have you had cornermen along your life? Well,
the first thing I did is I talked about Dave Corbin, my mentor. I've had mentors my entire life. Charlie Tremendous Jones would teach me that we are the same today as we'll be in 5 years, except for the people we meet and the books we read. I've had so many people in my side. And it's interesting because people say, what's next? And I think I'm going to do something a little kooky, is going to the coaching side of things, which I swore I would never do. I just signed my very first coaching client because I just see so much talent in this kid. Wow. And so I decided I'm going to become what people have done for me, and I'm going to share it and pass it on.
You're becoming a corner man.
I'm going to become a corner man. Same thing in books. I'm going to become a publisher. So I'm going to just go into the publishing side because so many people get a raw deal out there because they don't understand how the industry works. So I'm going to start separating this and helping people see what's possible and then give them a roadmap to make it come to life. It looks like you're out of time.
Yeah, we're getting there. If somebody wants to connect with you and inquire about having, Greg be a cornerman in their life, a coach in their life, how would they do that?
Instagram, Greg S. Reid. Real quick, to the point.
I love Greg. He's like, just shoot me a DM, bro.
Yeah, it's not rocket science anymore. That's what I'm saying. If you knew how many people I'm connecting on Instagram right now, I mean, celebrity people, amazing folks, so interesting. There's a TV show that was on Netflix last year. It's the #1 show in the history of the world called Wednesday. It's based on the Addams family back in the day. And the star, one of the stars is the hand. His name's Thing, the type of stuff. So I found him on Instagram and said, dude, love your work, amazing thing. He goes, and he and I just started talking. And he goes, what's crazy? He goes, I'm a magician by trade. They came to town. They just did a bunch of auditions for hands. He goes, I guess they like my stuff. And now I'm a television star using my hand. And I go, that story must be great. He goes, I've never told it. So I had him fly into Secret Knock last time for his very first ever interview in America.
Wow.
Where he got to share exactly how he acts with his hands and do a whole magic show. It was phenomenal.
You have a gift of giving people that have done great things the opportunity to share their story when they've never done it.
Correct. And what's crazy, there's so many stories behind the stories. Make-A-Wish, you don't know the story behind it. Ugg boots, you don't know the story behind it. Brian Smith only sold 38 pairs first year. Imagine 38 pair of boots. Most people give up with a bunch of inventory in the back, right? But this guy kept persevering. And the way he did it was phenomenal.
Well, Greg Reid, I want to honor you. I want to honor your time, man. Thank you so much for coming on the Cody Cottle Show today, sharing your wisdom. Guys, go connect with Greg. And as always, look for that 1 or 2 nuggets inside of the podcast today. What are the 1 or 2 things that Greg said that you're like, oh, that resonated with me? That's something I need to implement in my life. And take that thought, take that idea, and just like Greg taught us today, go take action on that. And then if you're really smart, maybe you'll shoot Greg a DM and say, hey, Greg, I listened to that podcast. I took that nugget away and I went and did it. Now what? Go make today great.